Hey, and welcome back to the podcast. We're here with Diane Primo. She is the CEO of Purpose Brand Agency. They are an award-winning Chicago-based public relations, branding, and digital marketing firm. Diane is the only African-American female CEO of a purpose-driven communications agency, and her focus is on impact marketing, which stems from the belief that brands must be relevant, purpose-driven, and committed to consumers to be successful today. So we're going to be finding out today all about what it looks like to lead with purpose, what drives purpose, how to overcome challenges with this purpose-driven strategy, and so much more. Diane, glad to be talking to you.
Oh, nice to talk to you, Robert. Nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you. And so you hear sometimes about how, your business needs to do good and have a purpose. You hear about how even in today's modern day and age, there's still all these difficulties that minorities face. You hear all the time about COVID-19 and that mixed bag that is. So with all this mess, all this swirl of everything that we're hearing, what is your focus these days? What are you passionate about? What is newsworthy? What should we know about just all the chaos and all the problems?
Oh, wow. The first thing you should know is that the chaos and all the problems will continue. That's not going to go away. So that is the one thing you can be certain about. In a world of uncertainty, you can count on the fact that there's going to continue to be divisiveness, divisions, different points of view, that it will become increasingly polarized in for us today, as opposed to things like really moving together, particularly as we move into the next election period. So understand that that's going to be a given. That's your reality. So look at that first. The second piece is, if you don't and you have not defined your purpose, or you do not have a purpose, I would suggest you start working on one. Key is because it can be your guide in moments like this. It becomes your sort of litmus test in terms, should I respond to things? Should I not respond to things? What's my position on that? It becomes important because as you do it, you are going to figure out how to do that to benefit your business and benefit society. But there's also a huge alignment exercise that you go through as you do that, right? It's a really, really important exercise. For you as a public company or a private company, it's really important for you to always be aligned with your employees as well as the other stakeholders. What purpose does is it really tightly integrates your business effort and as it relates to the company and the society with the public. And what I want to say about that is, what's the definition of public? The definition of public is that it's your employees, but it also is the citizens that are out there every day that engage with your brand. I hope that's enough.
Yeah, it gets us started. And so what comes to mind there is sometimes I get a little bit frustrated when like someone talks about this and they talk about having like a mission or a purpose or something for your company. And sometimes it's vague, right? Sometimes it's like, well, we want to provide more opportunities for the working class or this. And I'm thinking like, I don't even understand. And my mind was blown a few months ago when I talked to a guy and he said something along the lines of like, he wants to eliminate all plastic in the ocean. I'm thinking like, okay, there we go. There's something that's like clearly defined. You could almost put a number to it. And it seems like it's like unique and even like bigger than all the other noises I've normally heard. So what do you have anything along those lines as far as like the most amazing purpose that you've heard, or even like what your purpose is to really give us like something concrete and hard and fast?
Absolutely. A lot of companies focus on purpose, and the ones that are really successful really think about it as an operational framework for the business. It's not just a statement, right? And I think we need to step back from your question and sort of talk about what is an operational framework, right? So the first piece of it is, how am I going to define it? How is it really going to be positioned in the marketplace? Who am I targeting? Who cares about this? And what am I trying to do that really capitalizes on what my company does best and how I want to improve the world? So what is that intersection? So that's the first thing that you need to do, right? There's a very solid sort of exercise that you need to go through that is really kind of grounded in your own self-reflection. as it relates to what do my customers care about? What do my employees care about? What am I good at, right? What do my stakeholders care about? So you want to kind of take all of those things into consideration first. The second question that you need to ask yourself and ask yourself really sort of heavily is how is this going to make a difference? Like a lot of people like skip right over that part, right? That part's really, really important, right? And that's where you have to, step back and really start to think about, if this is my purpose, what specifically am I going to try to do? And what impact am I specifically going to have? And how does that relate to my product portfolio as a whole? And then how do I make sure that I empower my employees to make sure that they're able to do that? So that whole question about how it makes a difference is very important, and that has to be very metric driven. Okay, very, very metric driven, right? And you need to look at that and be able to account for that, right? So if you look at a company like Nike or BlackRock or Microsoft, they might have either an ESG report they're putting out, or they might have an impact report that they're putting out. Okay, usually what they're, or even Unilever, right? Usually what they're doing at that point is they are really establishing, how do I measure this? Very important. Their goals, their milestones, their metrics. Probably if you went to Unilever's website right now, and I haven't done this, lately, but usually they have up what their financial measures are, as well as their long-term measures, right? So that this idea of how is it going to make a difference is really important, and that relates to performance. How am I going to perform? There's no shame in making money, right? That's what businesses are in the business do, is to make money. And actually, consumers are really aware that that's the goal, right? What they're looking for is, what else are you going to do, and what are you going to do with that money, right? But it's kind of this circular thing, because unless you have figured out how to make money, you can't continue to do the great things that you need to do, right? And so both are really important. So this idea of having financial measures with non-financial measures is critical, very, very critical. So this how do I make a difference is very metric driven. And if you think about many companies leaning into ESG, which is environmental, social, and governance principles, they really are starting to develop a set of KPIs within each of those areas that reflect how they are going to do that. And that's why it's so very, very important, right? We can talk about that a little bit later if you'd like to, because I think that's a really important conversation to have. But it's how are you going to make a difference? And then to that end, measuring that. Very important, okay? The third part of the component, third part of the puzzle is really around your operational plan. Like, how are you going to operationalize this? And there are a couple of things you want to look at. The first one is, wow, I really need to align my stakeholders. Who's most important is employees, because the truth is, you're not going to do anything unless you have a workforce that buys in, that has the direction and understands how to execute and navigate as they do it, right? The second part of that third component is the strategy, literally the operational strategy. Like most businesses do strategy anyway, but this is about how you operationalize purpose within the context of your business. Very, very important, right? The third component of that last, the part 3 of that I talked about, really relates to what's my impact, which goes back to part 2 that we talked about, how am I going to make a difference, right? And that really is the ongoing impact that I'm going to have. And so what I would say to you is, if you are trying to look at, who are the companies that do it best, right? Go Google those companies that have, and I love Google, right? Go Google those companies that have impact reports, ESG reports. Typically, what you will see is the measurement for actually accomplishing that. Some greats, call out, standout stars, obviously, to me would be Unilever. They've been doing this since 2010, had a big 2020 plan on the table. have outperformed a lot of the companies in the industry, even though they've had some, short-term blips. But they started on the long term. They started setting long-term 10-year goals with deliverables around it. Now, did they make those goals? The answer is no, they were a little short, but as the CEO said, they were far better for trying. Absolutely. Far better for trying, right? Other standouts, take a look at Nike. They have an incredible purpose report. They go through the impacts that they have, and they have an impact report. Great company for you to look at. Take a look at Microsoft. Take a look at BlackRock. I mean, they're off the charts, a financial company that stood up and said, you know what, I'm willing to vote. I'm willing to vote people out. I'm willing to vote these principles in. I have trillions of assets in management under my control. I'm going to use my clout to make this happen. And that's exactly what they've done. So you got some real standouts. Patagonia, standout. Hey, their purpose is, I'm going to save the home planet. Take a look at what they do culturally, look what they do marketing. My favorite ad that I've ever seen in this area, I have to be honest with you, is when Patagonia took off a full page ad that said, don't buy this jacket. Okay, like I think it was during a Black Friday, like the Black Friday, which is the highest sales day in the retail community. They actually kind of said, don't buy this. Why? Because they understand that consumption, overconsumption, is bad for the environment because it creates massive waste and has a ripple effect. So taking a stance like that, huge. Okay. And then their voice, having a huge voice to the point where, we are activists in nature, and we're even going to sue the government when they cross the line. Okay. Down to culturally, if you were an employee and you object to something that's going on and you want to go out on and protest against this, if your lovely bottom winds up in jail, we will bail you out and we will pay for your bailout. Okay. Now, if you look at that company at every single layer, they have thought about their purpose and how to actualize it and how to benefit from it from a business standpoint, because all the things they do make huge news and go and reinforce who they are, what they stand for. And if you are concerned, deeply care about those things, that is a company that you want to be buying from. And people today, we see it in the research, deeply care about those things and are willing to not buy from some companies who don't uphold that and pay a premium for others. And they're a premium company. They're not like dirt cheap. They're a premium company. They're down. I live in Chicago, and there are a couple of big important wealthy shopping districts, 1 Mag Mile and Oak Street. I think they may be in Oak Street or Walton, one of those high-end streets. There's a Patagonia, and they're not cheap, but they're worth it if you care about these things, because they are going to be great stewards of your money and invest it wisely. And so there are a few examples there.
Yeah, and that was a lot to take in, but it makes me really optimistic about the future, because there's so much negativity out there, and you hear things like, there's like 21 or so companies that are doing 90% of the work of killing the planet, and it's really easy to be pessimistic and think like, oh well, all these handful of companies, they're greedy, they're selfish, they're just gonna like buy up all the land, they're gonna pollute the whole air, they're gonna just like ruin it for everyone. So it's good that there's the counter to that, and that it's not a lot of hot air, because it's easy to be cynical. It's easy to think like, oh, this company, they have this cost, and yeah, sure they do. They just want to get the upside. They just want the publicity. But it's good to know that this has a structure, right? And there's a science to it. And then you can look up these ESG reports and just be curious and see what they're doing. And there's real numbers, and there's real goals, and there's real updates about what it is that they're doing. So that way, in this modern day and age, when you can Google things, you can research things. You do have a choice. You can say, I could choose this brand and don't choose this brand. It's really reassuring, and I like a lot. So, I mean, there's so much of what you said in there about how there's the aligning with what the employees want and what the stakeholders want, and what'll make a difference, and that you can show will make a difference, and that it's not just trading, making money for doing good. You can make it all fit together and, you know, all go in the same direction, and you can make it all work. So this is some really cool stuff. And in these last few minutes in our conversation here, if someone's mind is blown like mine is right now, and they say, oh my gosh, Diane and her purpose brand agency, they have all these good ideas, but like where do you come in? Like, what size of company do you jump into, and what is the transformation you perform? What problem do you solve?
Yeah. So it's very interesting, right? So we jump in at a lot of different levels, right? We're a full service company that is a full service company as it relates to purpose branding and just companies in general, because it's our point of view that all companies really need to be purpose driven at this point, right? And many companies have it at the high level, but we'll help them actualize it, right? Help them bring it to life. That's one piece. The second piece of it is, we help companies all sizes, because this can get to be very expensive. There are agencies out there that'll charge you $500,000 to $1 million for helping you just start that practice, right? We have all different levels of services, even to the point where we do workshops with senior leadership teams, so they can actually start to develop this themselves, so they know how, and just workshop them through it, okay? Other companies, we come in and we literally do the initiative from beginning to helping them roll it out. And we kind of look at it that way. For other companies, we come in and we say, let's talk about content marketing strategy. And what we do is we look at their company and what they're doing and how they communicate. And we pick up on those things that are trending topics in the marketplace that are purpose related, that relate to what they are doing. Very, very important. But then we'll do the double check and we'll say, okay, they relate to what you're doing, but what do you have in place to support this? And are you really doing it? So for us, authenticity is really very, very important, right? So it's kind of like, a little bit of all of it, a la carte and holistic, and just helping you navigate that uncertainty and helping you find what is appropriate for you to tap into that is extremely relevant to the community at large. But in discovering that initiative and that relevance, we do a double check with you to say, let's make sure there's no disconnect here, right? Disconnect, here's a disconnect. Disconnect would be, I am talking about one thing, but my dollars from a political standpoint are going someplace else. A lot of people don't do that kind of check. You need to do that check. You can't say, I'm supporting one thing and then turn around your pack and support something else, right? Everything really has to be aligned and consistent, because believe it or not, the public checks, consumers checks, your employees check. The minute you open up your mouth about something, they're doing, 20,000 checks, right? And it's important for you to make sure from a communication standpoint that you're embedding those messages everywhere. And so we'll point out, you kind of need to put it here and put it there and put it here and put it there, to make sure there's a consistency and a flow, and that the communication is truly integrated about what you're saying. So the way to think about us is that we're a strategy agency, but we're also very much an executional agency who widely adopts integrated marketing communications practices, and we help you with that. Some companies say, okay, I want you to do it all. Some companies say, I just want you to work on the purpose strategic platform with me and help me get it to the rollout. Others say, I just want to hire you from a public relations standpoint and have you help me create a sort of a content marketing platform where some of these trending things are embedded that relate to my business. because I am going to do these things authentically, and we can help you double check for that. So, it kind of tends to be all over the board. That's what I would say.
Well, I can tell that this is a very valuable and very needed service, because as you kind of pointed out here, so many businesses have not actualized what it is that they want to do or said they do, or maybe they're almost on the wrong path, but they need your help to filter out the things to stay away from and think of new things to come out to add. And then, as you said, kind of double check and make sure everything lines up. And sometimes you're too close to it, right? Sometimes you need that outside team to look at your company from the outside in and look at it without all the emotion and all the baggage and say, hey, here's what is working, here's what it is not working. And so your website is purposebrands.com. And is
brand,
that
singular?
What's
Purpose brand.
purposebrand.com. Sorry, I think that's my California accent. My apologies. But so what's the next step here? Is it a good idea to go to the website next, or is there a more appropriate call to action after someone wants to pursue this idea?
Oh, go to the website, and you can go to the contact us page. And I think it's info@purposebrand.com. Contact us. You let us know what you're thinking, what kind of project you have. We have many clients that just come to us only for public relations because they know we're good at this. And you need to be, in order to communicate in this environment, you need to understand, divisions and communication divisions, which we do. And so we're very good at the public relations piece, helping people, navigate through a very, very difficult environment. And for some, it becomes a crisis. And for others, it's like business as normal. We're great. The other thing I would say to you is that, we have these incredible workshops that people should be aware of. Some people want to just, let me inspire my troops to, kind of look at this and think about it, broadly, how we integrate it from a business standpoint. We got speaking engagements that we do. And lastly, I have a book that just came out called Adapt: Scaling Purpose in a Divisive World. And we've interviewed like 15 Fortune 500 companies. So there's really some original information that I think benefits everyone. And we have a model for how you do this that we share broadly. And the companies that participated, from Nike to Microsoft to JP Morgan Chase, Rockefeller Foundation, HPE, Warby Parker, Lyft. There's a ton of fabulous information in there about what they do day to day to make this a reality.
Well, amazing. I'm excited just hearing about it. And so the place to go is purposebrand.com. And that way you can click around and check out the blog and check out all those speaking details, look up that Adapt book
on there, right?
Yeah, there's so much. And so as we're winding down here, you mentioned inspiring the troops. And I want to make sure that we leave with some final parting, lasting words of advice, because you have big ideas and you have already accomplished so much. So what do you have as far as, like, is there something that you wish you knew 10 years ago? Or is there something you wish that you want to just end on a good note? Or what do you have as far as some really good advice for us?
Best advice is, people ask, what's the purpose of a business? The purpose of business is to be a business of purpose. That is just fundamentally the best advice, to be a business of purpose. Because if you are not, you are going to get caught in the marketplace, and consumers may boycott you. They may activate against you. You'll have a ton of bad publicity. You need to think about this at your core. It is a financial strategy. It is a risk aversion strategy, right? You got to think about business risk and the importance of brand, and the fact that it isn't a significant intangible asset. It's around 29% of a market value these days from intangible asset. Do not risk your brand. Make it relevant, make it tie, and that relates to your business, because it starts with, what does your business do best? Lever that up, and then use what you do best to improve society in some way, and bring those things together, and then shout it from the mountaintops. You're going to talk about the business stuff. It's really, really important to do, right? But you also have to talk about the positive things that you're doing that make a difference, and showcase those as well. But it has to be real.
I love it. Well, very inspiring. And we need to be thinking about this. We need to be doing this. We need to be giving back. So the place to go next, the very next step is purposebrand.com. We will see you there. And thank you, Diane, for giving us just like, I feel like it's like 3 hours compressed into one podcast interview. So much to think about. I appreciate it very much.